As a director, what were some of the, and with a huge history obviously with this play, but what were some of the ideas or the main sort of themes in it that made you want to come back and revisit it again?
Well, the Slab Boys it's a celebration of life, working class life in the west of Scotland. It's also a celebration of language, the west of Scotland vernacular, and also it's aspirational. It's about young people's dreams. You've got 3 young apprentices stuck in the slab room. The slab room is the bottom rung of the whole industrial process. You cannot go any lower, and it's a no-hoper for them. And they all have dreams of getting out to be one thing or the other. Like Phil McCann wants to be an artist, he wants to go to Ascot and be a painter. And it's really about their journey. How do they escape? How do they cope with it? Now, the conditions under which they work are appalling. All they do is grind colour paint on slabs all day long. The most boring, mind-numbing job ever known to man. So how do they cope with that? They cope with that through stories, through their humour, through the double act that Phil and Spanky do. They put up this, if you like, this facade to the world of, hey, you know, we're gallus, we're funny, we're sexy, we're all the rest of it. And that's what they do, just to overcome the sheer boredom of their jobs.
And the difficulties of their life outside the slab room.
Yeah, you get. I mean, Slab Boys is not just a comedy. There's a whole dark side to underbelly to the Slab Boys. Not only what Phil McCann's mother's going through with her mental illness and the trouble she's always getting into, but you know, you've got Sadie with her problems at home. You've got all of them. They don't have much money to, you know, they don't have 2 pennies to rub together. So they are at the bottom end of society, and all they have are dreams. So I guess, and it's got great humanity. I mean, you can set this in any working class community in the world, and people would relate to it.
And it's
in any culture.
And timeless as well. I mean, yeah, 57, and it's got a real sort of strong, this is set in the 50s, look at it, just look what we've got here, look at the hairstyles and the clothes, but still relevant to a young audience of people who are just younger, just a bit younger than
yes, now, not everyone will get the 50s references to music or films or to television, but it doesn't necessarily matter. They will respond to the situation that these 3 young boys are in, kind of like the arse end of nowhere,
yes.
Really, and how they cope with it, how they escape with it, and if their dreams come true or not.
And tell me a bit about music. Do you use music quite a lot to sort of set the mood, set the tone, or to sort of change the mood and tone?
There's only one piece of music actually in the show that comes from the radio, but the rest of the time as the audience come into the auditorium, hopefully they're going to be 50s music playing. The front of house will be in 50s costumes, so will the bar staff. Then you walk into the auditorium, the 50s music will still be playing. So I hope that gets people into the way of it, because 50s music was great. You couldn't resist it.
Fantastic.
You either had to get up and dance or grab somebody to have a snog with or whatever.
Maybe that'll happen in the auditorium. And yeah, what difference between being in it and directing it, and also how difficult is it to be in it and direct it?
Well, I was in it originally when I brought the first trilogy back to the sets. I directed all 3 plays over 4 years. When we brought them to sits for Mayfest, I lost my leading actor 2 weeks before we were due to open. So I had to stand in and replace Billy McCall. So I played Phil McCann. Now I was too old then to play Phil McCann, but I stuck a wig in my head and managed to get away with it. It was the only option I had, because 2 weeks, you couldn't possibly rehearse a new actor into playing the lead in 3 plays over the space of what, in effect, 10, 12 working days. But I knew the plays well, I'd choreographed them, I'd directed them, so it was me slipping into an old overcoat.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, 30 odd years later, I'm playing Curry, Mr.
Yes.
Curry. That's more difficult. And that's why I have an assistant director to direct me through it. I haven't really been concentrating on Curry so far, I've been concentrating on the rest.
Not.
But I'll get there.
Well, he's not, unlike Phil, who's absolutely in almost everything, you know, Curry comes in and out. So I could understand that playing Phil, you would have just been thrown in the deep end, and also it was an emergency situation, I guess, the 2 week scenario. That's interesting. In terms of your characters and working with your sort of young crew of actors, being an actor yourself, do you think you work with them in any way that's different, perhaps because you have your own acting experience as well as heaps of directing experience?
You mean, does it make a difference to me as a director being an actor?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course it does.
And the way that you work with them as well to get them into character.
Yeah, because I've been there, I've done it, I've got the T-shirt, I've played the album in a sense, so I have the experience of doing it. So in theory, that makes it easier for me to get from a young cast what I want. But they've been brilliant. I mean, they've taken on board everything so far. We're only halfway through rehearsals, but it's taken over really nicely. So
it's quite. Every time I've been up there, it seems like a really relaxed atmosphere up in the room.
Perhaps too relaxed. Too relaxed. I have to crack the whip. Stop them having too much fun.
A lot of the humour in it comes from these characters that are like at opposite ends of the social spectrum. You know, people who've got all sorts of opportunities and people who have to really fight hard to get any. You know, and I just wondered, in terms of sort of the playing style of your actors, how have you made sure they're characters and not stereotypes?
That's always difficult. I mean, Slab Boys is fundamentally it's a comedy drama. Now, but all good comedy is rooted in truth and reality. So you have to get the characters grounded first. You have to use the building blocks, and it's like almost formulaic. You build it up slowly, piece by piece by piece, until you've got the whole edifice of the structure of the production. And then when you've got that, that's your springboard. Then the actors can fly and go off and really invest in the characters. But you have to believe it's like the very best of a sitcom. And I mean that in the very best way. It's a situation comedy drama. The situation is the slab room, the situations of their individuals' lives, and they're stuck in this little room together. How do they cope? How do they get on with all the tensions and the dynamics in there? And two highly competitive individuals, Phil and Spanky, who try and outdo each other all times in the comedy stakes. And they're brutal. I mean, they're absolutely relentless in terms of how they treat people. I mean, they rip people to shreds. They rip, Plucky Jack Hawk to shreds, Mr. Curry, young Hector, they set them up. As Sadie does, she calls them savages. Savages, that's what you are, savages. And they are. Really, I mean, there's abuse goes on in this play.
But a lot of it born out of the background these guys come from and what they're dealing with on a daily basis.
Yes, it's kind of second nature to them. So they grow up with it, they're kind of surrounded by it, so to them it's second nature. And to them it's just good-hearted banter. But it goes further than banter. It develops into torture. What's often really indicative of the whole mood of the thing. It's interesting how you were saying it's a situation comedy drama. It's sometimes difficult to say exactly what it is, and it veers between really awful things happening and massively hysterical things happening, and often you find that a really awful story gets told to you in actually quite a funny way. But in a sense, that's the kind of nature of farce. In a way, you take, you lay down the ground rules in Act One, where you've got the characters, you accept the situation, you accept the base of the storyline, and then in the second half you take the audience to another level where people are coming through windows and doors and all the rest of it, and that takes it onto a farce level. But the groundwork should already have been done in Act One. And
there's the groundwork a lot about the truth of the situation as well. Is that when you talk about groundwork?
Yes, the truth of the character truth of, what am I doing here? Wait a minute, do I want to be in this lab room? No. Do I want to be doing this the rest of my life? No. How the hell am I going to get out of it? Boom, I'm going to go to art school. I'm going to be a pop star. I'm going to be something else. Yeah. I'm going to eventually go onto a desk and become a designer. That's being moved up a rung. You go up into the posh bits of the office.
Yeah. So knowing your character inside out, then you can, as you say, spring off and do all those fantastic things that they do.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Just really briefly about the set. I mean, it all takes place in one room, the slab room. It's all really, really intense, Why does it all take place in the one room, and how is this particular set really useful for sort of telling the story of?
Well, it's set in one room because that's a metaphor for the desperation of these boys' lives. They are stuck in one room for the rest of their working lives unless they can get out of it. And it's what, I don't know, 4 metres by 2.5 metres or something. There's slabs in it, there's paint, everywhere's covered in paint and gum.
Quite a realistic set, what we're going to see, yeah.
Everywhere will be covered in paint and gum. Everything will be sticky, everything's dirty, they don't do enough work, they don't never wash up the dishes. So it's like a shithole really.
Yeah.
And it's very, very important. There's only one door into this room and one door out, and that's really important.
And was that sort of part of the way the design always kind of was, or was it something that
I think in the design room that John worked in originally, there was only one door in and one door out, so that was it.
For obvious reasons, really. you know. And there are characters, you said the guys are covered in paint all the time, and yet there are people who come in who are obviously probably spick and span, you know. So there are those who live in the slab room, aren't there, forever, and people's costumes and outfits really dictate a lot about who they are as people and whether they fit.
Well, John's very brilliant at doing character costumes. So you know, and he's got these wonderful drawings for each character, and they express a bit of their personality. You know, like Phil McCann's got a bright red jacket.
Yeah.
You know, great, red for danger. That's McCann, he's dangerous.
Yeah. Is there anyone else who's got a kind of costume that's really going to strike people, do you think, in the audience?
Oh, Lucile's got great costumes.
Can't wait. Did she do the full 50s glamour?
I haven't seen it all yet.
We'll have to wait and see. She probably will. Audience reaction, what you're hoping for in Glasgow. This is an obvious kind of question, but actually when the young people come to see it, they'll be talking about not only what they see, but how the audience responds to it. So this will be a lived experience for them. But no doubt you're anticipating...
I never anticipate how an audience will react. That way madness lies. No one ever knows how an audience will react. Every single audience is completely different from the one the night before. So I always knock out any notion that we can predict how an audience is going to react. And even same the first time we've done it. Now this is a comedy, ostensibly it's a comedy with a dark heart. I'm hoping people will laugh, but you can never take that for granted. And also, you know, there'll be a whole mixture of ages, so there'll be people who still remember the 50s if they're in their 60s, 70s and 80s.
That's right.
And they will get all that 50s humour. There'll be younger generation who won't, so they'll react in a different way. Maybe they might take the darker route through it. I don't know. You're just going to keep your fingers crossed and hope for the best.
I guess that's what's exciting.
Yeah.
So somebody else asked the final question. Are you more of a Phil, a Spanky or a Hector? I think I know the answer to that, but what would you say?
I'd say I was a Phil because, well, I started off as an apprentice in a steel yard, in an engineering yard up in Possil. I know, and I had dreams of being an actor, very much like Phil McCann being in the Slab Room, having dreams of being an artist. So yeah, I can identify very, very easily with Phil McCann. I'm not, I don't have the nasty side that he has.
Good. That's us really, David. Thanks ever so much.
Great.
Very, very busy. Thank you.